Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Strategy Show. I am your show host, the remarkable Maxine Phillips. So I want you to get ready to embark upon a transformation journey as my guests and I talk about life strategies that has gotten them to where they are today. I am the CEO and founder of Level Less. Level Less is about success without levels. Oh, we work with professionals in transition. I'm talking about unemployed, underemployed, those who are ready to be promoted, and even if you're ready to retire, or you've already retired and you're unsure what direction to take. We also work with our students. I'm talking about high school students and college students, and we are here to help them to choose a career path that matches their everyday abilities so that they get the career they want, the salary that they desire, and the lifestyle that they deserve. And this can be for adults in transition as well. So Levelist not only specializes in transition, but also consulting for performance reviews. I want you to understand that our guests, they dive deep into information and many times secrets or how they achieve their success. They help us to unlock our full potential, creating a life that is not defined, hear me out now, not defined by traditional levels of achievements, but instead defining what success looks like for you so that you can continue to succeed on your own terms. So sit back, let us know where you're calling in from, or dialing in from, or watching from. Ask questions, and welcome to the Life Strategy Show with your show host, Maxine Phillips. Let's get started. So excited about my guest this evening, Steve Rowe. Listen, Steve and I have known each other for several years, but what I can tell you about him, he is I think it's called councilman for the city of Morrisville. I think a member at large. So he's just not representing a particular location in Morrisville. We're talking about all of the city of Morrisville. And then he's a part of the Chamber of Commerce. He's a founder of TSG Academies. I tell you, this man is all over the place. And he is definitely a part of when we start talking about moving forward and we're talking about how to advance communities and the causes that's going on in the world, Steve is a part of it. So I like to bring Steve on. And not only that, wait. He's a radio show host. So he's on my TV show, but just know that you're going to have an opportunity to listen to him on his own, not only TV show, but his own radio show as well. So we're going to bring Steve up. Let's get excited. Let's give him a round of applause. Steve, come on in. Hello.
It's great to see you, Maxine. Thank you. And it's an honor to be here. She and I are members of the Roku TV team, as I'm a commentator and then commentator on PBS and now WPT, the TV, WPTF and Radio Naira. So sort of an emerging career in media in addition to my great opportunity of leading the town of Morrisville as one of our senior members of the city council. So pleasure to be here.
Listen, every time I talk to you, I'm always learning something new. I'm always like a sponge. But I know the whole purpose of you being on the show this evening is so that we can talk about playing the game of life. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to get your pen and paper ready because here at Levelist, we drop platinum nuggets. Okay, so let's get ready to take your notes and don't keep it to yourself. Be ready to share it with other people. So as we start talking about playing the game of life, we're going to use a comparison that a lot of you know about, and it's tennis. Actually, tennis. You had that ball you hit back and forth, but there's always a strategy in how to go about winning and becoming the high performance person that you need to be if you're playing tennis. So Steve is going to help us with some strategies that he has put in place in his life. But before we start really doing a comparison of tennis, let's just hear a little bit about Steve and how he got started with his life to where he is today. Take it away, Steve.
Okay, great. Well, I grew up in Charleston, West Virginia. My father was a surgeon who immigrated from India with my mother in 1968. And I grew up as a son of immigrants from India. Now I lead a town that's 47% Indian in Morrisville. But it's very different for me, to sort of see so many people of that community. When I was in West Virginia, it was a very small community. I had typhoid as a kid. I was very sick. And one of the game changers for my life was my grandfather, who was a major in World War II for the British Army and then Indian Army, and went on to become a real top executive at an Indian company, multinational called Voltas. He had really come from rags to riches and was such an inspiration and was such a great people's person. And I was actually, believe it or not, a very shy and bashful kid, didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. And in 1976 and 77, my mother called her father and asked him to come to spend 6 months with us my grandmother. And that summer changed my life. I want to run a book one day, but he would take me every day on the bus in Charleston. We would have a coffee, have a lunch, watch a movie, read a book, go to the library, end the day with some ice cream. And then every day he would ask me what I learned. And we did it every day for like 3 months. And then he died that October, but it really left an impact on me. And I became a much more motivated, driven person. And then got into tennis and eventually became a top junior player, won 2 state championships, and then played in college. Met my wife and went to law school, and law didn't work out for me. Couldn't make it through the bar exam. So I went up into a career in sales, had a lot of success in that, in technology sales, and ran a sports business, TSG. And then in my career, I do governmental relations now for the tech industry, but also won political office. And so it's been really great to kind of come full circle. And I've been in city council for 12 years. I'm the longest serving Indian American elected in the state. Served as mayor pro tem for 4 years, and I'm in my 4th term. The one thing I'm proud of is I've been the people of Morrisville have been very kind to give me the #1 vote getter status in every election I've run, which feels great, not to brag, but that I've really worked hard, and the people of Morrisville, I think, have put me back in every time, which is great. And now doing radio and TV, which has really been enlightening for me to be able to enjoy a different medium, which I never thought I would do. So, and I'm married to my college sweetheart, Dr. Komal Parekh, and I have a daughter who's a UNC a senior and a son who's going to be starting NC State in a few weeks.
Okay, look at you. Look at you. Listen, you've given us some phenomenal backdrop information about how you got started in life. And I love the fact that you talked about your father, and how he took you and the impact that he's made on your life. Because, here at Levelers, we talk about transforming generations and leaving legacies. And you're leaving that legacy. Your legacy with your father is carrying forward, because I'm sure you've imparted into your daughter. And now, being a part of the state government or the city government, you have an opportunity to touch and impact so many lives just by the impact that your father had on you. So I love that you brought that into the conversation, because many times we have a tendency to exclude that and not include it. So thank you for doing that. I think that is absolutely awesome. So as we start talking about the parallel between playing the game of life, and I love the fact that we're talking about it from that aspect, because one of the quotes that I use within my own organization, it says, career is a lifetime, but life is a project, because there's a beginning date and an end date. And I'm going to say that dash is playing the game of life.
Right.
That's what that dash is all about. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that when you start talking about playing the game of life, and a life from a tennis match. Because a lot of times that's what we see. That's the way we see tennis. It's a tennis match. Somebody out there hitting the ball back and forth, back and forth. But what's the strategy behind that when they're hitting that ball back and forth? So give us some strategies from tennis perspective to how we implement them in our life and in our career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't an elite or professional player, but I was a top junior player, and I was able to play in college. And, I think one thing I learned about tennis was that as I peel the onion back and take a look back, is that it's a game that teaches you how to compete every day and to develop your weakness, your strengths, which in my case was, as I got older, my forehand and my speed, and my willingness to really go after every ball, every shot. And I've actually lost some of the greatest matches I've played, and I've won some great matches. And what I've learned now, as sometimes when you get into the challenges of business and life, and particularly politics, it's very easy to get into a kind of a situation where you're so worried about things you can't control. And in terms of negative things people are going to say, what are the issues of the day? Am I getting enough media out there? Running a campaign can be very stressful. But if you get back to the basics and just focus on your strengths, defend your weaknesses. You have to get your hold on your weaknesses, but you're never going to get them perfectly to their strength. Mm-hmm. And then go for every shot. And waking up knowing that if you did your best and you did the preparation and it doesn't work out, there's always going to be another game. There's always going to be another match. And that's made me to be a very, what I would think, a successful politician. And that, I'm hoping I can run for a higher office or an office where I can influence more people next year or the year after. But what it's done for me is to say, look, if I do my best every day, I'm not really afraid of what everyone's going to throw at me. I'm just going to come in with my strengths, which right now is, in my opinion, my communication ability, my ability to connect with others, my media, my networking skills. And if I can be the best at that and defend my weaknesses, and I have a lot of weaknesses, but if I can lead with my 2 or 3 strengths and just go all in that. And the most important thing, Maxine, is your opponent. So sometimes the worst opponent we have is ourselves, the person we look in the mirror, like the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror.
Right.
Or it could be in a political campaign, you're so worried about what your opponent's doing that you're not worrying about your own game.
Right.
And so you can apply that in business, in politics, in relationships. And that's what I've been doing. I got a little bit away from it over the last few years, but getting back to the basics of what made me a tennis champion is working quite well for me in terms of being able to continue to navigate in this world that I live in.
I love that you talked about willingness, because in the game of life, you have to be willing to you also mentioned peeling the onion back. You have to peel the onion back on yourself so that you can understand who you are from your core. And that's what tennis helps you to understand what's your core strength. How do you take that core strength and put it into a strategy so that you can outthink the opponent, right? The whole objective is for you to get more points on the board than they do, and that way you win the game, the match. But when you talk about the willingness, and it talks about life, and you talk about the politics, you're talking about relationships, you're talking about careers, no matter what it is that you're talking about, you have to be willing to give and take. You have to be willing to understand who you are from your core. You have to be willing to understand how do you put a strategy in place so that you are prepared and you have prepared yourself appropriately. So I like the fact that you use that word willingness, because that's a strong word, because that willingness does affect your outcome of the results that you're going to go, especially I call it into a battle or into trying to overcome the opponent. If we're talking about attendance, and the opponent could be a competition with someone and you trying to get one job versus them getting the job. So we start helping people to understand that willingness can also play a very huge role when it comes to you positioning yourself in order to become the employee of choice. So I have to bring that in there, because one of the things that I do is help with people in transition to understand, how do you get that job? How do you get that ideal job? How do you get that job that that's what you've really been born to do? You want that dream job, but it needs to be real. It does not need to be fictitious in your mind, but willingness will help you get there.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
I want to give a plug in for Maxine Phillips. I mean, she has a great business, and if you have issues or whatever, we've got these life coaches out there that you really need to find the value of getting that assistance, getting that coaching. Everyone needs a coach, and I think it's really important for us to have those people. So I just want to give you a plug, and you can, I'll share the website, in my city newsletter. It'd be great. But thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. And that's the other thing. We help people believe in themselves so they can move forward and they can get out of that rut. They can get out of that being stuck. They can get out of not knowing how to move forward. But what would be one of the single most strategy that maybe even your dad or your mentor or someone has shared with you that's made a greater impact in your life or influenced you to continue to move forward?
Well, I think my own father, who always taught me to work hard, and was a surgeon who worked very hard as a leader of our family. My mother, who always taught me to look for the good in the others, always be very focused on faith and family, and be grounded and be humble. That's been a huge influence on me. Um, uh, my wife, who is just a great person, but very honest and very upfront. And my children, I've learned a lot from my children. They've grown up to be really fine people. My daughter's doing a lot of really great stuff. She's in Dallas right now, writing for the Dallas Times. She's going to South Africa. She was managing a migrant community. My son is an artist, wants to maybe pursue medicine, biomedical engineering. So I'm learning from a lot. And I learned from my father-in-law, who was an immigrant from India, who was a U.S. Air Force colonel, one of my best friends. He
Okay.
ran my first two campaigns. And so I learned a lot from him and my mother-in-law. So there's so many people in my life. And I'll end with this one guy that's had a huge impact on me. And I'm trying to bring him on one of our TV programs, is John Chambers, who was the CEO of Cisco and the chairman emeritus of Cisco. And I just saw him a few days ago. His father was a mentor to my father and mother when they moved to West Virginia as Indian immigrants. And John's from Charleston. And we kind of, I met him through kind of an unexpected way in Raleigh. And somebody had told him, he was a keynote speaker at a CEO forum, that I had known his parents.
Right.
And we talked for a few minutes, and he knew I lived with his sister. They were my next door neighbors, and we just really connected. And then next thing you know, he's kind of become an older brother to me. And I'm so proud of him, because he was a dyslexic. He was told by a lot of people that he couldn't make it, and he ended up running a $47 billion company, and is now a venture capitalist, and introduced the Prime Minister of India. And it was just so amazing that I could see someone face so much adversity. And he just told me that we all get one bite of the apple, and we just got to go in with all our heart and all our passion. And I've adopted him as my older brother, and he said that's okay, even though he's and so I'm hoping I can bring him back. But a real motivational figure, and kind of gives me books to read, and tells me, hey, this is what I think. And so, but I like to share his story, because I think it's quite fascinating. Somebody that worked his way up to the top of, corporate
Yes.
America, and has been able to influence so many people.
And when you're talking about working your way up, and see what Steve and what I failed to share is that we both are from West Virginia. We both are from West Virginia. Charleston is about 6 hours away from where I actually grew up. But it's awesome that we're both from West Virginia. And I remember when Mark, the producer of Pod TV, say, you must meet Steve. He's from West Virginia, from Charleston, West Virginia. I said, yeah, that's a county seat of West Virginia. So it was awesome to be able to meet you. But you talked about, starting so like at ground level and working your way up, your father, and then the mentor that you have. I'm thankful that you brought up the mentoring, because it's so important that people understand you need a mentor as well. Not only do you need a coach, but you also need a mentor, and you need a sponsor. You need someone who's going to sponsor you. So when you're not in that room sitting at the table, you have that sponsor who is, and they can bring your name up and make recommendations on your behalf. So I'm glad you talked about the mentoring piece as well, because individuals need to understand, even teenagers and some adults who are entering back into the working world, that you might have to start at entry level, but have your eyes and have your vision and have your aspirations to something even higher. You don't have to stay at the entry level. You can be laterally moving. And levelless means success without levels. So it's not always about climbing, climbing, climbing. It's about what you have defined what success looks like for you. And then you put a strategy in place and you start working it. So that's what I'm hearing you telling me, that your father helped you to understand, because he had a strategy in place for himself. Your mentor had a strategy in place for himself, and it instilled in it. That's why transforming generations and leaving legacies happens.
Right.
You are a part of that legacy.
Well, no, I mean, but it's something that we don't look at a lot about. And and lately, I think you made the statement that there's a beginning and a finish. So just a couple of weeks ago, I lost a close friend of mine, Conan Morgan, who was a political consultant for some of the best political leaders in North Carolina and across the country. And I had just seen him in Washington on my way to see Congressman Nichols sworn in January. And for months and months and months, we were playing phone tag, trying to text each other to meet for a cup of coffee, talk about my political ambitions or what I want to do next, talking about just the elections. And then he was killed in a boating accident on Memorial Day.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I saw him in the casket, it was the most surreal thing I've ever felt, because it really, I think this one really affected me in terms of, you know, just don't sweat the small stuff. And, yesterday, as I was speaking to Maxine, I lost about 12 years of data on my machine. And I spilled some water on my computer and I was just going to go crazy nuts. But I thought of Conan. I said, this may seem like a big deal, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, right? And But we often forget that life is not going to go on forever. And so even when it gets tough, we've got to find the things to enjoy, because we just never know when our day is the last day. And I always hear people tell me that, but you just keep going a mile a minute because, oh, I'm immortal, or that's not going to happen to me. I'm young
Right.
now. And then you look at what happened to Conan Morgan, right? And, shocking. So.
And that is one of the reasons why I talk about that career is a lifetime, but life is a project, because a project does have a beginning date and an end date. But it's important that as individuals, we understand that that dash between those dates is everything that we've done, all the people that we've touched, the influences and the impact that we have on this world. And that's even more reason why, Steve is sitting here and sharing his strategies with you. I'm here talking about life strategies and having a show that individuals can come on and share strategies with you, because at the end of the day, tomorrow is not promised. Yesterday is gone. So what are you going to be doing right now with your talents, your skills, your abilities? There's so many ways in which you can use them. And we don't just want you to sit on them, nor do we want you to take them with you when you're no longer on this earth. I tell everybody, I want to leave empty. I want to leave this earth actually empty. I want to share all my talents, abilities, skills, knowledge with everyone I possibly can, so that they can continue to live. And I trust that they would do the same. I trust that they would do the same. So, Steve, as we start talking about play to your strengths, because it's important that you play to your strengths, not only from a tennis perspective, but also in life, that you end up with that career, with that profession, and something that you have the everyday abilities and strengths for, and therefore it feels like you're not even working. You just happen to get paid for what you love to do, that passion and that purpose, and your reason for moving forward. So what has impacted you in this way to help you play to your strengths?
Well, I think the key for me is, for me personally, it's been getting back to my communication skills, my writing, um, learning my relationship building skills and ability to connect with others, and really, really taking that to another level. And at the same time, looking at maybe focusing a little bit more on finding more value in those relationships and trying to learn more about people and how I can help them and help them in what they're trying to achieve. And I think that's something sometimes you get so busy, especially in the world that I live in. So maybe slowing down a little bit, trying to get to know people better than just a handshake and a photograph that you slap on social media. We all can become selfie monsters, just going everywhere, selfie, selfie, selfie picture. what did the pictures really mean? Did you talk to that person? Did you learn about them and where they came from? What's important to them? And I think the real most successful people in life um, do just that. And I mean, I mentioned John one last time, but that's one thing I noticed about Chambers when he was at the networking reception. You know, everyone laughed because he wanted the prime minister to come, and the prime minister couldn't come. So, you know, he said, "I'm the next best thing to the prime minister." And everyone started laughing, and he has this kind of Western draw. But what was amazing when you watched him interact was he was so engaged and interested in the startups and the entrepreneurs and the people he was talking to. Such energy. He was sweating profusely, so I got him some water. But you could tell that, and I think that's why these people are so successful, is because they're so interested in others.
Yes.
That so I was telling my wife, imagine why Cisco was such a successful company, employing 100,000 people. Because if I had a top guy that was that motivating, I would get up every day and work really hard, right? These companies don't become big companies overnight. A lot of it's about the culture and the motivation. And so,
Yes.
you know, but anyway, that's what I've been working on myself. So it's kind of a work in progress, but finding those strengths. And, you know, sometimes I take on too many things. Sometimes I lose my focus. And sometimes I let everyone else tell me what I can't do, and all the voices start ringing in my head, and I start doubting myself.
Right.
So, you know, you just got to say, I'm not going to doubt, lose the fear, face it. Like the song Pitbull, face the fear and rise. You know, like the song, I believe we will win. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of where I sit with that.
I love it. I love it because you made me think of I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. Believe it every night and day. So you have to believe in yourself. And that's one of the things that many times individuals don't follow through with is believing in themselves, believing in the knowledge, the skills, the abilities that especially the abilities that you were born with, that no one had to teach it to you. And that's one of the reasons why when I'm working with our youth, our college and our high school students, I start helping them to understand what are your abilities that you have that no one had to teach it to you. You didn't even have to go to school for. That's your strength. That's what you were born with. And how do you map that into a career, into a life profession, so that you can have a love for what you're doing? You can have a purpose. And many times, Steve, we both know it lends itself to become that servant leader. Right. You end up becoming that servant leader, when you start doing things like that. You talked about culture. Oh my gracious. When we start thinking of culture, and you talked about organizations and how they become successful, they don't become successful on their own. They had to hire individuals to become a part of it. And what are they doing with those individuals that they hire, who's now a part of that organization? What type of culture are you actually showing them? Not only that, what kind of culture are you allowing them to help develop?
Right.
They have the full buy-in. That's where you get the high-performing organizations, and when your employees are fully engaged and they have the buy-in and they contributed to creating that culture.
Right.
That's just something for leaders to start thinking about. So from a political perspective, how do you look at culture from even the council position that you're in, or even participating on the executive board of the chamber? How does that affect culture when it comes to that part of life?
The problem with politics is we have a good culture in Morrisville because we have a great manager. She's retiring this September. We've got great colleagues in our city council. They have a lot of experience, probably over 100 years of Fortune 500 corporate experience, volunteer experience, media experience, and me. And we make a really good team. So we're really getting a lot of good things done. I guess the challenge just in general of politics is the social media campaigning, and people want to win, so they pretty much say anything they can to win sometimes. And that hurts the culture of the body, because you got to make tough decisions, and it's easy to get very divided at times. And in politics, it's tough. I think culture has it's a bad culture right now in U.S. Congress. It's almost like a gladiator sport. Just get on one side, and each party's hitting the other pretty hard. Same thing at the state legislative level. Not a real good culture over there right now in the General Assembly, where in North Carolina, where I live. And it's like a cancer. The bad culture kind of spreads and creates a lot of fear and anger and frustration rather than focusing in on the problems that we can solve together. And I know there's been talk of a third party and no labels and those kinds of things, but
Right.
I think that's I already see it in the city elections. I mean, um, you know, supporting as a coach and mentor an independent running for the council, Sarika, but getting a lot of negative attacks already about she not being a Democrat and all that stuff. And so when the partisan stuff comes in, it takes it
Mhm.
away from the issues of roads and bridges and schools and the kinds of things we should be talking about, not just labeling ourselves with a political party. And that hurts the culture. If you're
Right.
going, so to answer your question in politics, that's what makes culture very tough.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, Sharika is running for the council for Cary, North Carolina, District D. And I know part of her platform is the youth, is about what can she do to help the youth continue to what impact from generation to generation. And I the other thing that I know that she's looking at is our seniors, a fair housing.
Right.
And so that's another important part that we all need to be concerned about is how are our seniors, because hey, we're entering into that arena that we're going to be one of those seniors that also need to be considered about housing. And then what about our playgrounds, our walkways, our greenways, our parks, our bike trails, our walking trails? That's where we continue. We talk about mental health, and you need to get out there, be among nature to keep our mental health, to keep our sanity, have a place for the kids to go and play. So when we start thinking about those aspects of life and strategies, what have you seen that has been some of the greatest impact for you, even as a little boy growing up in West Virginia to where you are now when it comes to those strategies to maintain mental health?
I think enjoying time with family, enjoying time with your friends. I think exercise is important. I exercise a tremendous amount for my age. I mean, I run, you know, 8-minute miles at 51, 52. I'm swim a mile every other day, play tennis because those endorphins keep me so alert. And someone
Mm,
hosting my own shows and doing media and speaking as a politician, I want to feel really good. And so exercise makes you feel very healthy mentally because
right,
stress out and you feel like in control of your body, you feel really good. And that's how I deal with not only stress, but mental health. Stay away from alcohol, drugs. It's okay to have a drink every now and then, but I only have a drink on special occasions. I get the highs off life of other things, hitting a tennis ball, watching a good movie, reading a good book, learning something new, spending time with your family, and having a glass of milk and going to bed, which is kind of weird too. That's the last thing I do. And I'm pretty wired, pretty tight. So I work from 5 in the morning until 9 at night. And then I feel like a little kid when my mom used to put the covers over me, just have a glass of milk and go to bed. So everyone thinks I'm really boring as I get older, but I like living that clean life. Just work hard.
Well, yeah, and working hard. I like the fact that you said working hard, but what we also help individuals to understand is you have to also work smart while you're working hard so that as you're working that what you're doing with those strategies that you're able to continue to execute with excellence, and you're impacting the people, and you know how you're impacting the people, and you're engaging and building relationships. So when we start talking about relationships as a part of a strategy, I know you've got your father and I know you have the mentoring. So talk to me just about in general in life as far as you building relationships with individuals.
I think I talked about it earlier. I think the most important thing is to know, and I have to work on this myself. I need to get better at this. Is um, trying to learn more about the person you're in a relationship with and what you can do to help them through anything that they're going through or providing them advice, um, trying to maybe find a way you can help them. And I think that brings a lot of value creation in the relationship and also creates a sense of trust. And it's very easy to go through life shaking a lot of hands, having lots of business cards, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a relationship.
No.
And I've been guilty of that because I meet a lot of people every day. But I think the key is slowing down, and I might have to start writing it down and just think, what did I I know all the staff members, almost every staff member in Morrisville by heart. And that means a lot to the staff members that I take the time to learn their names. I have a photographic memory, so it's not easy to do that. The police, the fire, the planning department, everybody I know by name. And knowing people's names is important too. I tell
Yes.
people, if you don't go to Facebook, um, learn their names, learn their families. Um, it'll mean a lot, in
Yeah.
terms of like just that you didn't just shake their hand and you were looking somewhere else. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, and I always joke that's the nice thing about Facebook. Right before you put your head back, you just got all those friends on your phone, and you just
Yeah. I mean, there is a workshop that I do that's called Make Every Connection Count. And in that workshop, there is an exercise that I have individuals to do. And I have them to go to their smartphone. I say, now look at all the contacts you have in your smartphone. I mean, like I have probably like about 1,000. But I ask, how many of those have you actually built relationships with?
yeah, I know. We're so guilty of that, and I think that's the key. That's something that I have to get better about. But at least I realize it, and I
Yeah.
think that's the key,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is
Realizing it. Yeah.
and how do you get better at stopping and doing a better job at that? And I
Yeah.
have one colleague, Satish Gurmela. He's a city councilman. He's an immigrant from India, but he's very good at that. And so he just is so methodical in terms of um, he doesn't enjoy the stage as much as me, and being I'm more of a showman. I'm more of a performer politically, and you see that I like to speak. I'm like an orator
Right.
almost. And but what I really have learned from him is he likes to take a step back and really think through things, and then come in and say, look, here's how I can help you. And so I hear so many stories of things that he's done behind the scenes to help others. Whether it's connecting someone with a medical provider if they're sick, getting on a conference call when he found out one of his friends had cancer, hooking up somebody. So these little things he does that he never takes the credit for or does, but the fact that he took the time to do it and to think about that person is really, really great. And I think that's the kind of thing we have to do when we build relationships, because you build
Yeah.
trust with people, right?
Yes,
And,
yes, yes. And it speaks volume that he did not have the need to have his name out there saying, I did this for so and so, so and so, I did this, but he did it behind the scene, and it wasn't had to be publicly announced. And I love that, because many times that's exactly what I do. I do behind the scene. I don't have to be in the forefront doing it, just as long as I'm able to help you move forward with what your calling is, what your ministry is, what your purpose is, what's your vision. That's what's important, because at the end of the day, if we're able to help that person believe in themselves and continue to move forward, all it takes is that one. All it takes is that one. If we just be willing to help one person. Now, there are many that we can help, but if we stop helping everybody, then what good does it do us to have all this knowledge, skills, and abilities that we have been given an opportunity to learn?
exactly.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So I know you have a TV show. So talk to me about your TV show or your radio show. Give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, I'm Roku TV, which is the station we're on. That's a global network on the streaming pod Roku TV. I host a show called World Edition, which is I haven't really been around the last couple of weeks and months after COVID, traveling a lot. But that's 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. We have panels. We bring Mark Lee is the co-producer of that show, and he brings in a lot of guests. And so
Yeah.
it's a really good show, and I enjoy being the commentator on that, the host of the show. I'll be joining tomorrow for the first time in 2 weeks. And then Radio Naira is an Indian station, and it's in North Carolina, and I host. They play all kinds of programming in Indian music, but I host a show called Leaders. So I want to bring you on that show sometime and talk about your business. We'd love to. And then now I'm a commentator on PBS Carolina's TV show, Black Issues Forum, and I've joined a new program called State Line. So about once a month, we're taking sort of a break this summer. I'm on the state TV once or twice a month on Channel 4, usually around 4 o'clock or 7 in the evening. And out of the blue, WPTF called me. And I've been on there like I think 9 times. And then Nate Saunders, who runs the show, said, "Hey, Steve, would you mind joining us on the Friday 3 o'clock show?" So now every Friday I go into WPTF and I'm their political commentator. Usually talk about Morrisville, and that's been fun because that's a pretty well known radio station. So uh, I don't know how it ever happened, but now I'm on TV and radio probably more than any city councilman in North Carolina. So who knows, right? I mean,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You just said something earlier that you said you hope. I'm gonna move the word hope out of there and trust, and use the word trust that you can move into that, continue to move forward in that political arena of where you're aspiring to get to. So I'm gonna
yeah,
use
and I would
trust.
love to one day. I mean, I've been going to Washington twice a month, and for work, and I've really fallen in love with it there. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping that my long term goal is, to one day be able to get to a place where I can serve the country. I think that networking and meeting people across the country would be something I really enjoy, and maybe give it a shot. But I think it'd be fun, and so you never know. I mean, but right now just taking it, you know, as we close out the interview, what's worked for me is focus on my tennis coach often taught me when we were playing tough matches, just focus on the 15 minutes in front of you. And if you could play really good for 15 minutes, do another 15. And if you can give me 1 hour, you go play really, really well. And that's just in life. So it's so easy to wake up in the morning and go. So I had that crisis with my computer, and I just worried about that 15 minutes. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put my computer in my bag. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to take a nap. Then I'm going to call my IT guy, and then I'm going to go, and then I'm going to meet a guy, and then we worked it out. I got a laptop, got the data, survived. Here I am talking to you with an actual computer that works. Got to take
Right.
my other machine to the government and get them to give me a new one, but it worked, right?
Right.
So just 15, 15, 15. So don't look so far ahead that you forget about that 15 minutes in front of you, right? Um,
What's going on right now? What's happening in the present? Be
squeeze
present.
every minute out of life as you can. And
Yeah.
sometimes I do that too much, and I'm just such an intense guy. I schedule everything all the way up to like when I go to bed at night. So it's like,
Mhm.
and that can be. I'm not the easiest guy to vacation with because I'm very structured and very processed. Just drives my wife and my family crazy. I have to like get ready to go on vacation. Then when I'm on vacation, I get stressed because I'm not used to not doing anything. And then I finally get in vacation mode, right?
Mhm.
But now I'm back in that process driven mode of, gonna have dinner, gonna go home, gonna work for 2 hours, gonna wake up, gonna do it again. But that structure feels good. And you know, it's uh
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun times.
And ladies and gentlemen, just know that not everybody is like that. Not everybody likes structure. And so you have to understand how it works best for you. And even in doing that, Steve, one of the here at Level we do an assessment called the ability assessment. And it helps individuals to understand exactly that. Do you like structure? Do you prefer a process in place? Or do you prefer creating the process? Do you prefer groups or do you prefer individuals? What works best for you? But if you don't know that, you need to get to know that. And that's where we can help you right here at levellessco.com. But Steve just shared with you that he knows himself. He knows this about himself, but not everybody knows that about themselves. But it's important that you do. And when you know that, then that's another, to me, a level of communication that you can share with someone else on how best to communicate with you. So now I know that if I go anywhere with Steve, guess what? I better have an agenda. And it better say 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is what we're going to be doing. But someone else might look at it totally different. So, but you have to pay attention. You have to listen with active ears, and what
And
it is.
make fun goals for yourself. Like, one way I'm gonna relax is I've got to work on my city newsletter tonight. So I'm getting kind of used to the new Microsoft Word on my computer. It's not as easy to work with. But
Mhm.
one thing, it's kind of a stress, but I've got to see every Indiana Jones movie before Friday because Indiana Jones is coming out. So how am I going to get that in? So I've got to schedule that. And that becomes like a good stress because
Yeah,
then I'm going to have to relax. Or maybe I'll watch Raiders of the Ark last night. Maybe I'll watch Temple of Doom on Disney. I've got the Disney streaming now, right? But these
right.
are the kinds of things that make life fun. And it is summertime, folks, and we got to enjoy ourselves and have some fun. And looking forward to having you come on my radio show, and looking forward to seeing the guys at Roku. I haven't seen them in 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
14 days I've been gone on the road.
Well, I'm sure they missed you just as much as you're missing them. So, we'll give a shout out to Mark Lee, the producer of Pod TV. We give a shout out to Nicholas and Kim for allowing us to be a part of Pod TV. So we always like to give a shout out to those who are helping us help you move forward. And that's what life is all about, is how can we help one another? And please, please, please don't always look at it as what's in it for me. You will get what's in it for you when you start helping others. When you start giving back and helping others, the universe will make sure that it's repaid to you as well. But do it with a good heart. Do it with a good heart. So how can our viewing audience get in contact with you? What's the best way?
If you go to steverao.com, you can get my newsletter, which is a city newsletter, but you can connect with me. You can follow me on Twitter at Rao, the number 4 Morrisville, at Rao, RAO4 Morrisville. I'm on Facebook, Steve Rao. There's a site, which is my family, with a picture of my family. Just do a Steve Rao on Facebook. And then also there's a government site, which when I'm doing government updates. You can reach out to me, and my email is easy, sr@steverao.com, and shoot me an email, and we can connect. And Maxine, send me an email with your website, and I'll send that out to everybody as well.
Right. And you can always reach me at levellessco.com, levellessco.com. And you can put Maxine at levellessco.com is the email address. But Steve, thank you so much for all of this great knowledge, all of this encouragement, all of these platinum nuggets that you just dropped. And ladies and gentlemen, please do not keep it to yourself. Share it. Pay it forward. Pay it forward.
And I'll end with this. I always have a metaphor, as I said when I introduced Sarika, that, my speeches are like a box of chocolates. So really no one knows where I'm going with the metaphors. I write some poetry, but one speech I gave to a bunch of kids once at a graduation is that, these devices, we have so many operating systems,
right.
upgrade. You're in the middle of a document. You got to upgrade your Microsoft Windows. But we often forget the most important operating system is our heart and our mind. And if they work together, that's the most important upgrade. And there's no limit to how much storage, how much love our hearts can give and take. Unlike when we get a message from our phones, no more storage. You can't take another picture. And I love that analogy, because sometimes we forget that this is the operating system that matters. And don't get too addicted to technology, because, sometimes if you get to a place where it doesn't have a GPS system because the Wi-Fi is down, you got to pull out a map and you got to find your way around. And as we were driving in the Midwest, we found out that there were about a couple 20, 30 miles where the GPS quit working.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And you got to learn how to pull out a map. But some people live their lives that way. Just plug it in and go. I don't even know. I'm not even looking. I just plug it in and go. Just follow the thing, and then you're there. And, so that's my metaphor.
I have to tell this quick story. A friend and I, we were driving. I forgot, we had driven to a basketball game, was on our way home, and it was dark. And so we had the GPS on. And so the GPS kept saying, make a right turn. And so she said, no, let's just go down a little bit further. And then it says, make a right turn. Oh, no, we'll go a little bit further. And then she say, the GPS would say, is make a right turn. So we never did make that right turn. So guess what happened? We came to a dead end. So we said, I guess the GPS knew what it was talking about if you just pay attention to it.
There you go.
Yeah.
The GPS, the heart.
The heart.
The operating system that matters. Unplug. Throw away the phone.
Yeah,
that's what I did. I got a friend. What?
Yeah, get some me time. Have some me time. Just have a little shutdown time. It's nothing but 5 or 10, 15 minutes in a day's time. Do that and take a deep breathing and calm and be recentered. So as we close, I always say, I believe in you and I trust you believe in yourself. So meet me back here at the same time next week. We'll see.
Thank you, Maxine.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Have a great evening.